Good morning, honorable members of the Portfolio Committee. Good morning to members of the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation.
Good morning, Chair.
Thank you. And congratulations to the newly appointed Director General. You're welcome. At least we've arrived in a space wherein we had anticipated that the department has its own Director General and we do away with the acting positions. So we congratulate you and welcome you, Director General, and your team. We are today going to receive a presentation on Innovation Fund. This is the presentation we had packed because we did not have enough time in the Portfolio Committee 2 weeks back. So we're going to proceed with it because we had agreed in the Portfolio Committee that we're going to create a specific time for the presentation. Our agenda is flighted. We can all see it. Shanaz, can we have apologies?
Good morning, Chair, and everybody on the platform. The apologies we received were from the ministry. So both Minister and Deputy Minister have clashes regarding their official duties with our program. So they won't be joining us this morning. And then there's been a request from acting DG that she has to leave the meeting at about 11:30 because she has to make a flight somewhere, Chair. But I'm sure we'll be done with the presentation by then. Thank you, Chair. I've not received any apologies from our members. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Shanaz. There's also one from Honorable Mkhunu, who is going to be traveling. She requested that she's going to be in, but she's going to leave early because it clashes with the travel. So those are the apologies that we have. Can we have a mover for the adoption of the agenda? Honorable Nkosi?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, general members and the department. Morning to the newly appointed DG. I move with the adoption of the agenda, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Nkosi. Can I have a seconder for the move? Honorable Mazoni?
I second for the adoption. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, honorable members. The agenda has been adopted and seconded. Can we move straight to I'm talking to myself now. Can we move straight to the presentation by the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation that is going to be led by the new Director General, Mr. Cele, Dr. Cele, right? I don't know what's happening. We keep on being muted.
Good morning, Chair.
Oh,
And,
I'm
yes,
sorry, acting DG. I did not see you. I thought the new DG is coming in. Thank you. Welcome, acting DG. The platform is yours.
Yes, Chair, thank you. I'm still acting for the next few days. Thank you. Then I'll hand over to the newly appointed DG. Thank you, honorable members, and good morning. And good morning to all the team members as well from the DSTI. We are here to present, like the chairperson said, what should have been the second part of our last appearance in terms of what we are doing in the innovation fund space. So I would now like to hand over to Dr. Kele. He is still in the role of acting as DDG Technology Innovation, hence he's here with his team where this portfolio sits. So can I please hand over to you, Ndosi, to take us through? Thanks.
Okay, no, thank you, ADG. Good morning, Chair, Honorable Chair and Honorable members, and thank you for your kind words and best wishes. I'm joined by my colleague, Konanan, who will also share the presentation. Konanan, please share the presentation.
Thank you, DJ. I'm uploading.
Okay, so yeah, just put it on a presentation mode and go to the next slide. Thank you. Chairperson, the first point we would like to make is that the Innovation Fund needs to be seen partly as a response to the white paper and policy intents, which are about collaboration, increasing support for and collaborations with business sector. The second one, it's technology deployment. The third policy intent is intellectual property commercialization. The fourth one is business research and development, supporting business R&D needs. And the fifth, it's funding. And also, as members, honorable members know that the white paper is implemented through the decadal plan, which has articulated a certain perspective on commercialization. And this slide really provides a sense of what the decadal plan is saying. So, for instance, it will provide a suite of interventions that we will have to implement through the decadal plan. So we need to develop a comprehensive support package and the establishment of innovation hub type support centers, including coaching and mentoring services. It also takes an expanded view of innovation, which also encapsulates social innovation and provides support for commercialization and also government uptake of resultant technologies. And it also emphasizes trade synergies, wherein we promote commercialization in foreign markets of intellectual property filed by South Africa technology startups and SMMEs, both in kind or financially by the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, and also promote the promotion of commercialization of publicly funded IP beyond SA's borders. We also thought, Chair, that we need to show how the Innovation Fund is linked to the medium development term plan indicators. And so on the left, you will have the outcomes, the two outcomes to which we're linking or aligning, which is the accelerated growth of strategic industrial and labor-intensive sectors, the dynamic science, technology, and innovation ecosystem for growth, And there are the strategic interventions are essential in three categories. So to the expansion of financial and non-financial support for small businesses, prioritizing township and rural economies. The second category is to grow and transform South Africa's science, technology, and innovation capabilities in respect of human resources and research infrastructure. And of course, the third one, it's e-commerce or promotion of or the development of e-commerce slash digital platforms. It's also important, at least for us as the department, to have a set of indicators that we must use to track progress in relation to the strategic interventions that we have identified. So these indicators are appearing on the right. For instance, percentage, a number of startups supported financial and non-financial. And the last one is the percentage of internet users using the internet for purchasing goods and services. So just to give the honorable members a sense of our trajectory, our journey or evolution of the fund, honorable members will recall that in the 2016 State of the Nation address, the president then indicated that the Department of Science and Technology will finalize Conan, please take it back here. Will finalize the Sovereign Innovation Fund, a public-private funding partnership aimed at commercializing innovations that are from ideas from the public and the private sectors. And since then, we've held a number of consultations which also included the development of guidelines and the toolkit for the design and the implementation of such a fund. And that happened between 2017 to 2020. And then in 2021, the department's executive committee approved the pilot phase, which was then launched in 2022 at the SA Innovation Summit. And again, members will also recall that this year, the president did indicate that the department will scale the innovation fund to provide venture capital to tech startups that emerge from higher education institutions. So having outlined the timelines or the trajectory, it's also important now to then indicate the rationale and the purpose of the fund. As we have indicated earlier on, so the fund was conceptualized in 2016 as a public-private funding partnership to crowd in public and commercial capital to drive the commercialization of locally developed innovations. So the rationale for the fund and its purpose is really to to serve as a complementary intervention to support critical investment pipelines for the other public and private investors, including the Technology Innovation Agency, the IDC and PIC, private equity and VC firms. There are three focus areas, Honorable Chairperson, that the fund seeks to intervene. That's the early stage innovation, including the pre-commercial seed innovation-based startup and innovation commercialization by flagging companies such as Impulse Bio. And then the second one, the second focus area is market development and the launch, which will enable the expansion of formalized innovation business activities, including launching into new markets. So we have examples such as Bambili and Sitsong. The third one is growth and expansion, which is intended to provide support for scaling large industrialization activities, including the accelerating the production and the development of new product lines. And we do provide two examples, the Stone 3 and the Stellenbosch Nano fiber. So the strategic focus of the fund really is to ensure investments in early development and expansion stages of technology-based SA firms, including where appropriate SMMEs that may be startups or fledgling firms, and also to follow on financing for the full industrialization and development deployment of large-scale R&D initiatives that have been initiated and funded by government through a variety of means or mechanisms in the form of science councils, higher education institutions, or in support of improving service delivery of government and state-owned entities where appropriate. So then there are, honorable chairpersons and members, there are about 5 objectives of the fund, having set out the rationale and purpose and the strategic focus. The first objective, it's about stimulating innovation. So the fund seeks to encourage development and commercialization of locally developed IP, innovative products and services. The second objective is to attract additional private sector investments into the SA innovation ecosystem and venture capital industry. The third objective is to provide catalytic risk capital backing to early stage startups and tech-enabled SMMEs. The fourth objective is to strengthen the infrastructure and support systems for innovation and venture building in order to make sure that we realize a sustainable innovation ecosystem. The fifth objective is to build the necessary human capabilities to strengthen the SA innovation ecosystem. So in other words, we seek to build an innovation skills base. So, and then maybe let me at this stage just ask Konanani, the chairperson, with your permission, just to take us through the next 5-6 slides.
No, thank you, DDG, and good morning, chairperson and honorable members. So what we're trying to do with this slide is just to reflect that when we're conceptualizing this instrument, we also looked in terms of the literature, what is this instrument, how it is normally implemented. And the rationale behind this instrument, it's really about government providing catalytical or what you call risk capital in order to, through a financial intermediary, to invest in small company. And at the policy level, this instrument, honorable members, is to really aim to address a financial imperfection. And in our context, that imperfection is to relate that most of startups, because of their early nature, they are unable to secure enough capital to drive their growth. So we saw that as a big gap in the ecosystem, and this instrument seeks to plug that gap. There are a number of approaches on how this instrument can be implemented, learning from other economies. The first one is that government either direct investment into venture capital funds. That means government create its own venture capital funds where it puts money in that fund, and then it acts as a limited partner. The other approach is a co-investment approach, where then government co-invest as a limited partner with venture capital funds. The last approach is what we call fund of funds, where government appoints independent financial intermediaries, which are largely private sector, to then mobilize a commercial capital and then invest in the venture capital funds. There are pros and cons of each of these approach. And from us as South African government, we have looked at our strengths and weaknesses, and ESCO then took a position that a fund of funds is probably the best model to pilot this instrument. And you'll see in the coming slides, honorable members, that we are trying to then demonstrate the pilot phase implementation of these funds of funds. So ultimately, then what are the target audience of this instrument? There are 3 sets of target recipient of this. Is that you are also targeting the private investor to bring their commercial capital to support innovation ecosystem. If you recall, the first objective of this fund, it's really to drive commercialization and also to leverage commercial capital. And commercial capital, it could be from bank, insurance company, high net worth individual, so that they assist government in rolling out the innovation mandate. The second group of the second targeted group is a venture capital funds. These are the funds that also go out and leverage additional fund, and then ultimately invest in the beneficiaries. And the ultimate recipients of this instrument are entrepreneurs, startups. These are the people that are creating and driving respective tech businesses. So the ultimate target of this instrument is to make sure that the funds reaches the right targeted group, and that targeted group is are entrepreneurs and tech enterprises. So here what we're trying to just to explain this concept of funds of funds. There are two approaches to this fund of funds. The first one on the left is where government then create a special purpose vehicle and co-invest its public capital with a private sector investor. And that money then is used to support portfolio company, or what we call startups or entrepreneurs. The other approach, which is on the right, it's what we call the direct investment in venture capital funds. That is where at funds of funds, the investment intermediaries, they leverage commercial capital, they put in the pot, they use that money to support venture capital funds, then venture capital funds then invest in the portfolio companies. We as DSTI, we have opted to the approach on the right because we were looking at our own workforce internally and expertise, and we realized if you were to set up the approach on the left, you probably need a number of staff complement to drive that, because it requires a lot of compliance, it requires a lot of human resources on the ground. So we have opted as the department to roll out this fund of funds modality using the direct investment into venture capital funds. Just to give you theoretically what happens. So what happens is that, let's say investor one is the DSTI. As a government, we put forward what we call a risk capital. For example, we might decide that we have 10 rand that we want to put forward to the ecosystem to support the entrepreneur and ecosystem. Can we have commercial partners coming on board with their own money to make a pot, what we call fund of funds? That money is then managed by investment intermediaries, which then make a call to the fund manager of venture capital funds. Those venture capital funds will receive a certain portion of that fund of funds. They will still have to go and leverage their own other funding to make a sustainable fund size. Once that is reached, then they begin to invest in local startups. So FM1 refers to Fund 1, which then invests into Company 1, and then the cycle goes all the way to Fund N. So the N here just reflects the number of possibility that can be supported. But it really boils down at on the top level, how much have you managed to leverage? Because it determines, one, how many venture capital funds are you going to support, and depending on the size of the venture capital funds, how many enterprise are they going to support. So to date, we have managed to establish 3 funds of funds. The first one was launched in 2021, led by SSME Fund. It reached a first close in 2023. First close really means it is almost half to the original targeted size. So for example, if the target size is 1 billion, if you reach maybe 500 million, you are able to then say we have enough capital that we are able then to start disbursing in the venture capital funds, which will then in turn start investing in these startups. It reached its final close early this year in 2025. We also have early stage technology fund of funds that is being led by Public Investment Corporation, PIC. It was launched in 2021. It was finally closed in 2024. And just last year, you would have probably also picked up this in the media, together led by TIA and SME Fund, we have launched high impact seed of funds, which to date it raised around 300 million and is still in the process of fundraising, and the target for that fund is about 500 million. So what I'll do now, honorable member, is try to go to each of these funds just to see how this leveraging effect it's working. So this is the first fund, which was led by SSME Fund. The DSI over the past 4 years, it put together 265 million to that fund. So the SSME Fund as investment intermediaries managed to raise around 35 million rand from USAID before the current challenges that we're experiencing. And they also put forward their own 50 million to that fund. So then they also went and mobilized what we call commercial capital. This is the capital that will otherwise not be released to support this risky startup if government had not raised its hand to signal its intention to support the ecosystem. So it managed to raise 950 million, and 250 is from retirement funds, 100 million from renewal assurance, 100 million from UCT Foundation, this is their endowment part, and 500 million from commercial side of the PIC. So in total, that came to 1.3 billion. And if you look at the leveraging effect or gearing effect, this is just a multiply effect, which says the 265 that the government put forward, it managed to leverage 5 times commercial capital that will otherwise not been released in the ecosystem to support this startup. And this aligns perfectly with the second objective of this fund, which targets the leveraging or gearing effect of this fund. So what initially looked like a huge amount of money from DSI managed to leverage 5 times that money from the commercial. And we see this approach being very innovative in the sense that it also contributes to the problem that we have in terms of our low GERD percentage. We think if we scale up this initiative, maybe we are able to move the needle as far as our GERD target is concerned. The next fund is the fund that was led by PIC. In that fund, DSTI put together 235 million, and the PIC then managed to negotiate with the GPF, and it raised 755 million, coming together to a 1 billion fund. This can be translated to a multiplier effect of 3 times of original DSI amount. The next fund is the one that we launched late last year. It's led by TIA and SSME Fund. DSI put together 200 million, and then the 2 investment intermediaries then managed to leverage 100 million from E-Squared, and we can calculate that multiplier effect to around 0.5 multiple. And this fund is still fundraising. The target and sustainable fund size is probably between around 400 million and 500 million, and it will give us at least one times leveraging effect. So if you look at the story of these 3 funds, I think it really talks to our effort to try to free commercial capital that will otherwise been sitting the balance sheet of this commercial entity that we have now, through this instrument, making available for investment in the local technologies. So these are the 12 funds today that have received funding from these funds from these 3 funds of fund investment. We have the University Technology Fund, for example, which primarily play at the seed stage of investment. We have the likes of Fireball and so many. So, but I think the message here is that what looked like a very dormant venture capital industry 5-6 years ago, we are beginning to see it flourishing, and we can in part contribute that flourishing to the position that the government through the DSTI took to provide risk capital to be able to mobilize commercial capital to support this industry. We also put this also as a SONA target, and we are targeting that in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll probably reach around 15 to 20 venture capital funds that are supported to invest in the local startup. So DDG, I will leave it up to here, then you can take over in terms of explaining the actual entrepreneurs and beneficiaries that we have supported today who are actually receiving this source of funding. Thank you.
No, thank you. Honorable Chair and members, it's also important just to make one crucial point that if you look at where South Africa stands in terms of venture capital in comparison to the rest of the African continent, we have been overtaken in the recent past by countries like Nigeria, Kenya, and Rwanda in terms of venture capital deals and so forth for a variety of reasons. So this effort that we are presenting or demonstrating to members, we are hoping that if it's scaled up, it would also inject the necessary energy and commitment from our private sector to ensure that South Africa regain its leadership role in terms of the venture capital, and we catch up and even overtake as the countries that have overtaken us. There are about, to date, 96 startups, chairperson, that have been supported, and they are all domiciled in South Africa. And as you can see that in terms of the industry verticals, there are different types, from finance to ICT. And then there are different also startup business models, as the circles show. About 51% fall under the category of B2B. And then the nature of startup offering products or services, we could see that 56% are in the service category, and 37% are in the product category. The next slide. So again, we had a discussion with the team, and we said, let's try and map where are these startups in terms of the various provinces in South Africa. So of course, we would be first to admit that the dispersion of startups reveals a disproportionate entrepreneurial activities. The Western Cape is leading, is at 58.9%, followed by Gauteng, 23.3%, and they have over 80% of startups. So this is also perhaps a challenge that we all need to work towards, making sure that there is an equal spread throughout. But of course, this will need to be tied to the general economic activities of the country. And then we also wanted to look at the demographics, the leadership of the supported startups. So in terms of youth and gender, so it's 21% or a percentage, 21% of youth enterprises that have been funded. And then 23% of the funded youth were female. So we are not happy, chairperson. We had a discussion with the team, but the next few slides are also meant to show what we are trying to do. We will really mobilize and also be looking forward to receive inputs in terms of how best we could improve. In terms of numbers, you could see that there were actually 80, and then 30 enterprises that went to female. So yeah, so the picture is not looking as good as as we would expect or want, but we would want to see it changing in the next few years. So this slide just gives an example of female-funded enterprises. So for instance, we have the Setsong African Tea Crafters, which is rural-based enterprise, and it builds on years of DSTI, Indigenous Knowledge System funding investment to support cooperatives. And then we have also another cooperative, Limang Tare Cooperative, and so the initiative has secured an uptake agreement with the Food Lovers Market Supply Network through Retailer Seeds of Change Supply Development Partnership. It would also allow the tea range to be distributed through Food Lovers Market outlets, presenting countless growth opportunities and reach for the brand. The next slide.
Okay, so I think I've lost. Sorry, Chair, I've just lost the screen. Okay, let me see whether I've opened the right screen. Sorry, Chair, I'll just use, I don't think this is the right one, but I think you can carry on while I'm trying to get the right screen. It just bombed out.
Yeah. So Chair, this is another one, another example of a female-funded enterprise whose CEO is Busi Baloyi. Its value proposition is to harness the diversity of indigenous South African microbiomes or mushrooms in particular to biomanufacture chemicals, food, feed, cosmetic, and pharmaceutical products. The investment is at a range of 5 million rand. And then, of course, here we demonstrate the type of the technology and product offerings that this enterprise is providing. The next slide. And then this slide, Chair, shows an example of a youth-funded enterprise. The Lean Organic, which is a South African-based biotech startup existing to achieve total biomass valorization. So the investment there was 6 million, and it uses a different, whether it's waste biomass, biorefinery, and then you could see the products that are emanating from this investment. And then some have already been packaged well, as you could see. So let's move to the next slide. We're almost done, Chairperson. And then, Chair, so these are the examples, about 23 supported youth startups, as you could see the names that are appearing on the slide. So if you look at the commercialization success, so the intention there is to secure market opportunities for commercialization of the precision medicine-based next generation sequencing and microarray technologies. And then, of course, the investment has resulted in Mediclinic SA acquiring about 80% shareholding in Artisan Biomed. And I think Kunanana will provide more information if necessary on this one, but we're just demonstrating the example. And this is the second one, the Stone 3, which we had mentioned earlier on, which included TIA as a partner as well. And then the slide provides a range of sector-specific portfolios in the health sector, digital sector, the agricultural sector, as well as the logistic sector. So the chairperson there, Dagala, Konana, do you want to explain this quickly?
Yes, thank you, DDG. I think the issue that we realized recently is that the VC space is lagging in transformation. And although we haven't done an independent assessment study, our initial internal assessment of the program so far, we are realizing that we do not have enough first-time and emerging fund managers, and this we don't have enough female founders. So in order to mitigate against this, what is clearly an anomaly in our own data, we have then put together an office at TIA to build the capability to support the first-time and emerging fund managers. We have contributed funding to that, and there was a call that was issued early this year where TIA now is putting together a program to support first fund and Black female manager so that they are able to play in this venture capital space. Our target in the next 5 years is that if funding is available, we are hoping to double down on this effort so that in the next 4 to 5 years, we are able to reach at least 10 or so first-time and emerging fund manager. So this is our own proactive intervention, having realized from the initial data that there's a serious anomaly around the demographic at the venture capital funds. And subsequent to that, we also then put together a program which we call a Black VC Associate, where we are really trying to place young and female prospective fund managers of the future into venture capital firms. So this how this program works is that the venture capital funds themselves also co-fund the stipend of these associates. This is a 2-year program, and we think 2 years gives you enough time to learn the ropes, and then we are hoping that these professionals will either go back and found their own startup, fund their own venture capital investment firms, so that we are able to really transform this space. Also, as an intervention, you will see in the data, I think DDG mentioned this, is that the data in terms of female and youth is not looking great. And we know even if we get an independent assessment, I think we'll probably arrive in the same position. So when we try to ask what is giving rise to this picture, there were a number of issues that were raised, I think, and we realized that we need a dedicated program where we really take youth through building a tech venture. And we realized that the first vertical that we should target should be a digital venture, because digital venture, it's very low in terms of infrastructure requirement. So we have issued a call for a venture building program for youth. We received around 304 applications. The program shortlisted 86, and 50 were interviewed, and we selected 20. Ideally, we want to also scale this initiative if funds permits, because this is what we see as an important intervention in making sure that we build a very solid and sustainable startup that are able to receive a venture capital funding. So these 20 startups that have been selected, you could see on the left sectors that they belong to. Two are in education, 4 around fintech and commerce, 4 in health tech, and so on. And in terms of the stages, you have around 6 that really are at the pre-seed stage. They just have concept. They need to build that concept over time into a business. There are startups that are around 11 which are in the seed stage, and there are 3 which are just about, with the right intervention, will be able to scale. And I think what we also want to highlight, Chair and Honorable Member, is this startup called Ancestor Honor. It's a very unique startup because from where we sit, it's where youth are beginning to use tech, not only to drive a commercial side of things, but also talk to social impact. It's really about building a digital platform that preserve family legacy using AI-powered ancestry. We just find that if you give youth opportunities, they are able then to come with the idea that one will ordinarily never think technology will be able to do. So we also did the breakdown of this 20 youth startup, and you'll see that the number of female is around 25%, male 75%. The total number of Africans or Black supported 80%. We have 10% who are colored, and 10% white. And if you look at the bottom of the far right, there's an age distribution. We see majority of these startups are between 26 and 30. And I think that this is the range that going forward, we should be able to target to make sure that we still have at least a buffer where these youth are able to then build a startup before they follow out of the 35 plus. This is the last slide, DG, just to request the chair and the honorable member to assist us in spreading the word. As part of really stimulating innovation culture, the DSI has now launched a SA Tech Challenge. This is the Tech Challenge that went out last week. And the aim here is to also get top quality startup from South Africa to participate as part of the Digital Islands Summit as part of the G20 as a presidency in September. And we want to roll out this challenge every year going forward, because if you look around Tech Challenges instrument, they play a very, very crucial role in stimulating innovation culture. And we want over time to design it to address some of the weakness that we are seeing. And we are just pleading with the members to just spread the word that this big challenge is the first for South Africa, and we are hoping it will help us to attract the best of the best so that they are able to participate at the global stage. That will be it, acting and that's the way forward.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Honorable Chair. In closing, going forward, of course, it's important for us to undertake an independent assessment of the pilot phase of the rollout of the fund, so that we can see where we might have missed certain steps and where we should be improving. The second point, which is critical, is the scaling up of the implementation of the Innovation Fund. As we've indicated, that we need to increase investment in first and emerging fund managers, and also design targeted support instruments to cover the underrepresented provinces, and double down on youth startup interventions and venture capital building programs to increase the pipeline quality and quantity of the youth-owned tech enterprises pipeline, and also to ensure increase in innovation skills and capacity building programs. And then, of course, we intend developing a digital monitoring and evaluation dashboard for the program. With that, Chairperson, we are really humbled and also appreciative of the opportunity given by by Parliament to present the Innovation Hub. Let me take it back to you, Acting DG. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cele and Konanani. Chair, this is us in terms of the Innovation Fund program. We've presented all the interventions, and like Dr. Cele says, that we are looking at other ways to do the assessments, address any gaps, look for scaling up, and also continue to work with several partners to be able to reach out more in terms of creating the culture of innovation in the country, especially in our society at large, but looking at youth, which is the biggest share of the population. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thanks.
Thank you, DG, and your team for the presentation. And can we take questions from members of the Portfolio Committee? Honorable members,
Recording in progress.
Honorable members, can we take questions and deliberations? Honorable Ramungaro, Honorable Nkosi, Honorable Mjadu, and Honorable Ramungaro, you can start.
Greetings to all the colleagues, and thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. I really do welcome the presentation by the department, but for me, what I have deduced from today's presentation is that, I think we can't emphasize enough the importance of, fostering technological advancement and, scientific research that addresses the socioeconomic landscape issues and challenges of South Africa. And, we definitely support the notion of using the Innovation Fund to address things like historical inequalities and, reaching out to marginalized communities. And I think we've spoken about this at length. And it's one thing to advocate for broad-based inclusion that pushes, the transformation agenda, but just as important is ensuring that, we drive economic growth. So I would like to know if, in your approved projects that you've identified, how are they chosen? Like, what is the specific matrix being used? Is it, one that has the most socioeconomic impact, for example? Because I think, with me, my thing is, we need to really start identifying projects that speak to the growth of our GDP, especially if we want to be taken seriously as a department. We need to find, projects that are not only mind-blowing, but will also have a meaningful contribution in addressing, socioeconomic growth, things that contribute to, your job creation. And so I want to know, is the focus really on driving economic development that can also stimulate local economies that, will in the long term position South Africa as a, competitive player in the global market? That's the first one. And in the presentation, I saw, a couple of funds that have been dispersed to support like your female and your youth entrepreneurs. And I think one of the products will be sold through Food Lovers Market, and which for me, that is a good thing, as that is opening up the market for, like a local entrepreneur into an established and well-known franchise. And that alone presents great opportunity for them to thrive. Chair, I really like hearing such stories. But however, a lot of times we see innovative projects receiving, startup funding, but they struggle to sustain themselves in the long run, which is concerning, obviously, especially if there's been things like investment injected into a particular project, because I think the point is to have flourishing, sustainable projects in the market that can self-sustain. So I would like to know, or I would like you to elaborate further on what are your proposed plans in the implementation of things like mechanisms that will offer support to entrepreneurs, and how do you plan to evaluate the success of these projects? Do you have something in place that will guarantee that each project you get involved in becomes successful? Because things like mentorship programs and incubators are instrumental in nurturing these great ideas from the get-go and to the implementation phase. And a lot of businesses fail because some entrepreneurs, especially, those who don't have formal education, they fail due to things like not having knowledge in financial management, for example. So I would like you to detail how you plan to ensure that failures based on those type of things doesn't happen. And furthermore, you talked about having 96 startups that you support. So I would like to know how many of these are fully independent and operational, and how many are still being supported. And please, detail to us how many have failed, and how many have failed, and how you have dealt with those that did not succeed. My other worry is also with when you talk about private partnership. I mean, yes, it's important for them to contribute and assist in enhancing funding opportunities and supplying resources. But how are you convincing the private sector, or rather, let me rephrase and put it this way. What has been the challenge in trying to get the private sector on board? Do you experience hesitations from them to invest because, they usually want to get involved in projects that offer immediate return on investments? And, in the technology and innovation sector, that's not usually the case. A lot of the times you see a return on investment that happens at a later stage. So the private sector is hardly ever concerned with things like social innovation. They really just care about profit. So how has that been a challenge to you? And, Chair, like I said in the beginning, the Innovation Fund really does have the power to generate, innovative solutions that lead to, your sustainable development, as we've seen in the presentation and the great examples. It was also identified as one of government's priorities for the 2025 2026 financial year. So I would like to know what this actually means in terms of funding for the Innovation Fund. Has this actually yielded to there being more improved, or even perhaps a promise to increase future funding by Treasury? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ramungalo. Honorable Nkosi.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I think in my understanding, Chair, is that the Innovation Fund is also designed to address some of the national priorities, such as elevating poverty, creating jobs, and reducing inequality, particularly by prioritizing the support for the SMEs and marginalized segments of society, that is the people in the townships, the rural communities, women, young people, and people with disabilities. So, Chair, I just have a few questions. First will be, beyond the number of the beneficiaries as per the presentation, what are the specific metrics and indicators used to assess the long-term economic and social impact of the Innovation Fund investment? And question number 2, Chair, will be, how does the DSTI track the commercialization success rate of the IP supported by the fund? And what are the strategies to improve that? And also, Chair, I wanted to hear from the presentation and on how the fund is addressing the triple challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment through its innovation interventions. And Chair, also, I wanted to know, how is the DSTI ensuring the benefits of innovation that they reach marginalized communities and contribute to inclusive development? And what are the specific programs within the Innovation Fund targeting the innovations from the townships and rural communities? Lastly, Chair, Honorable Chair, is that how is the department addressing the concerns of young researchers regarding the career viability in science and technology. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Nkosi. Honorable Mjadu.
Honorable Chair, honorable members of Parliament, Department, I greet you all. Thank you very much for the presentation. I just want to go straight to my comment. This document provides a comprehensive overview of the innovation funds pilot phase, dealing its objective, structure, and achievement in supporting South African innovations ecosystem. It highlights the successful initiative like the fund model, which leverages public and private capital to support tech startup, and showcases impactful case studies such as Setsong, Tea, Crafters, and Sabona Mycelium. However, the report could benefit from deeper analysis of challenges facing during implementation, such as barriers to private sector's participation or disparities in provincial startup distributions. Additionally, while this document emphasizes gender and Black inclusion, it's like a granular data on long-term outcome for these groups, such as sustainability rate or revenue growth post-funding. I want to pose 3 questions, Honorable Chair. One question: how does this innovation fund plan to address the unequal geographic distribution of startup, where over 80% are concentrated in Western Cape and Gauteng, to ensure more equitable support for underrepresented provinces? And number 2, what specific metrics or KPIs are being used to evaluate long-term success and sustainability of the funded startup, particular for Black-led enterprises, beyond initiative funding and short-term commercialization? And the last question: given the reliance on private sector to co-investment, what strategies are in place to mitigate risk and ensure continued private capital inflow, especially during the economic downturn or shift in investors' priorities? I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mjadu. Can we, in absence of more questions, can we give back to you, Acting DG, Zwane, to...
Thank you, honorable members, for the questions, and thank you, Chairperson. Can I please allow Dr. Cele to lead in responding to the questions? Then I'll come back and close. Thank you, Ndos.
No, thank you, ATG, and also Chair and honorable members who have asked questions, which are really important, and some of them, Chair, I must indicate up front that they will help us as we roll out the program to make sure that we embed the necessary measurement frameworks to monitor how the project or the initiative is being rolled out. So, for instance, on the issue of sustainability, it's an important question that the members are raising, and Gonanani will explain if he's in a position to indicate how so far we have approached that question. But certainly for me, going forward, it's something that we need to make sure that it's built on various projects. The second point, Chair, is that indeed, as you could see with the different focus areas of the various projects that have been funded, to some extent, they do speak to the triple challenge. Albeit they may not be explicit, and I must be first to admit, but you could see that to some extent they are meant to help address the triple challenge, and of course our hope and vision is that some of these initiatives in a long term will help us contribute towards an inclusive and sustainable economic growth. And that's partly why we need the private sector to be involved. And I would like to make a generic point about the private sector concerns, and we'll deal with the specifics, that nationally, the issue around private sector participation broadly in terms of the innovation system is a concern, honorable members. The department has previously indicated the decline investment in R&D by the private sector. And the main concern that we have picked up in engaging the private sector has been what they call the lack of policy certainty, and that's what they've said consistently to us. The second point, of course, is that our private sector, maybe compared to others globally, they are risk averse. They want real certainty. And they've said to us, we need to really provide concrete initiatives for them to then look at and then decide how they would then be able to invest. But Konanani, please, maybe in this case, if there are specific issues that might have arisen, please respond. And also the question about the 96 startups that we have provided. And so, Chair, let me just ask Konanani to provide detailed information, but where we may not be having the information, certainly with your permission, Chair, we would request maybe to also provide further responses in writing. Konanani?
No, thanks, DDG, and thanks for honorable members for the questions. I think the first set of questions from Honorable Ramual, I think you raise very, very important questions that we need to support startups that are disruptive in terms of their target market. These are startups that don't only, should I say, they are not only good in South Africa, but good globally. And I think maybe with the issue of Stone 3 that we have just highlighted, that we missed to emphasize the importance of that startup. That startup is one of the startup that is competitive globally. It's using internet AI of things, and it's able to operate in different geographies. Last time when we were doing the site visit, they were actually showing us how they're using sensor-based AI technology for mining data based in Chile, and they are able to control them based in Cape Town. Also, if you look at the startup around, if I can randomly choose maybe Artisan Bio for argument's sake, this is a startup that is using technology that is tailored for precision medicine in order to solve some of the issues that we are dealing in terms of the genetic diversity of the South African and African population. And these are the problems that you will expect a startup base out of African continent to consider. So these are some of the startups that bring tailor-made solution in South Africa. And also, if you look at one of the startups that also provide here, ligno-organic, this startup that it's using, for example, macadamia nut shell to make coal, to make sugar, to make even detergent. So, and it has also social impact on the environmental impact on the side that we are minimizing the use of the creation of the waste. So, what we can also do in future maybe is to begin to share more of these startups along how we see them addressing the triple challenges. But the slide that we showed where we are showing the sectors of economy where these tech startups belong to, it was an attempt to indicate that these startups, they have a direct intervention to the economic sector, environmental sector. The other issue that Honorable Malo raised is around failure rate. Unfortunately, even the best economy, they have high failure rates. The numbers are that 10 out of 100 that you support are most likely to make it to commercialization as sustainable. And it's not a nice stat, but that's what's happening even in the best economy. And I think a take-home message for us is that we have to then make sure that our pipeline is of a good quality and big enough that even with the high failure rate, we still have a few of those that make it through are able then to compensate for those failures. So here, the take-home message from where we sit is that we really need to be patient, intentional, and make sure that we focus on building this startup with the hope that with that failure rate of 90%, the 10% that makes it through are able to drive enough economic, social, and environmental impact that will help our country. There was also a question around private sector challenge. So far, I think the problem that we have is that we just don't have enough capital to double down on this in scale. But whatever allocation that we have currently, we have a plan that will continue with this model. It seems from our own initial assessment that it is providing enough private sector capital that will otherwise not be possible if we haven't adopted this approach. And with little with the little we have, our approach is that we just have to not stop, double down, and hopefully then the success will come. And Honorable Ngosi asked question around economic metrics. Because we are playing in 3 stages, what we call pre-seed stage. This is just a stage where a person just have an idea. And our role there is that can that idea be molded into a venture that can, 1, attract follow-on funding, 2, can it be sustainable? So depending on the stage, we have different interventions. But all in all, as a fund, what we are looking at is that these startups are able to generate revenue, because if they're able to generate revenue, it tells us that they have a market. And no matter how good the technology is, if you just don't have the market, it's not gonna fly. So we target revenue generation as one of important metric to measure. 2, follow on funding. As we indicated, the number looks big in terms of money, but if you look at the number of startups that money that government provides as a catalytic capital, it's not that much. So if you are really generating revenue, you should be able to convince the private equity markets, other funders, to then buy equity into your stake. And we see what we call exit or secondary acquisition as one of the important metrics to measure how this fund is performing. Because if an independent person is willing to buy into your company, that is a value add that will otherwise not have happened if you were just a startup at the pre-seed. So progression along the value chain, we see revenue, market access, and follow-on funding as a very, very important. And of course, around high-level impact outcome metrics, we want to make sure that these startups talks to the triple challenge. And I think if we were to do a report around how each startup is contributing to the triple challenge, I think we are able to tell a solid story. And in that regard, I think ESCO last year just given us a go ahead that we have to build a marketing and communication plan on how Innovation Fund is responding to this triple challenge and impact overall. So we are hoping that we'll put all the mechanism together in the next coming financial year, so we are able to tell this presentation differently, how our startup are responding to socio-economic development, how our startup addressing issue of inequality and poverty. So we'll be able, through that marketing plan, to be able to tell a story at impact level. And there was an area around how do we improve success rate, building around career visibility and that. So our view is that, for example, the challenge that we launched, we see that also as an intervention that can help us just to begin to stimulate the interest in the country. And our view is that if we have enough funding over time, we'll probably start with the maybe regional or provincial challenges, which will then culminate into a national challenge, so that we begin to drive this innovation mandate which cover the broader provincial spread. If necessary, we are looking at possibility that whether we can partner with a municipality around innovation and corporate challenges, so that we make sure that innovation is indeed perceived across all spheres of government. And the question from Honorable Mjado around geographic distribution, I think we already started, for example, with the venture building. We are hoping that will convince our executive committee to scale up on that program, so that we issue a call which targets only those provinces that are underrepresented, so that we are able to make to build enough pipeline, which will hopefully feed into the venture capital market. And the continuity and private sector, like I said, we cannot, I think, as a country, afford to lose the trust that we receive from the private sector around the instrument. And where we are sitting is just that we just have to make sure that we have a clear mandate, what we expect around transformation going forward, what type of startups, demographic representation. But where we sit, I think we have to leverage the trust and the working relationship that we've developed during the pilot phase, so that it becomes a standing policy instrument in the ecosystem, that private sector is aware that if you want to then assist government in driving the double down on this fund innovation mandate, innovation fund is the instrument to go for. So I'll hand back to you, DDG. Thank you.
Thanks. Honorable Chair, let me just make 3 points or 4 points before we hand back to the ADG. The first one, there was a question related to National Treasury and the possibility of increasing fund. There is a pending engagement between our minister and the Minister of Finance around overall how to increase the STI budget. So we are hoping, as part of that engagement, that we would be able to provide the minister with the necessary motivation, including how the Innovation Fund could actually serve as a useful instrument through which such potential increase could be realized. Because globally, if we benchmark this with comparable countries, this is really small amount that we have been able to receive to support this innovation fund. And we have been told that if we want to really realize maximum benefits out of this, so really it needs to be drastically improved. But we have to be realistic for now and work with the little resources the modest resources rather that we have, and also make sure that we improve our engagement strategies with the private sector, for instance, which is the second point that the minister is committed to do, to engage with the private sector and find ways in which we can understand better the issues and concerns of the private sector and why they may not be as involved as they ought to be in the innovation space. So that will also include just making sure that all the sectors in the system, the science councils, the universities, we find a way of developing a very strong argument that we need to put before the private sector. And then the issue around young scientists, yes, Konanani has explained, Honorable Nkos, but I think it's also about us making sure that the broader initiatives that the department is rolling out on youth into science, whether it the initiatives that the Department of Higher Education and Training is the emerging researchers is working collaboratively with us through NRF. We need to find a way and ensure that the young scientists and innovators are properly and adequately supported, because in any event we have a problem of attracting younger researchers into the system. So that again, it's an important point raised. We will take into consideration and make sure that we establish the necessary links, including the issue around the sustainability of these initiatives. In as much as the Innovation Fund is focusing on a certain portion of the innovation value chain, it's our responsibility also to make sure that it's connected. People don't just drop off somehow, but throughout the other value chains, and that's why the engagement with the various players in the entire value chain is going to be important for us to address. And as I indicated that. Or the last point, when the President, Honorable Chair, visited CSIR early in April, he requested that the Minister and CSIR come to Cabinet to present on key strategic initiatives that are being rolled out, so that there is better and improved appreciation across government about the various initiatives that are emerging from the system. So it's also another opportunity we are seeing that if we can be able to make a strong, convincing argument to our ministers and the president, in the future, we should see some improvement towards the investment, increasing investment in these areas, and certainly the Innovation Fund would potentially play an important role as an instrument through which such increased funding could be rolled out. So if there is any question that we have not adequately responded to, Chair, through the ADG, we should be able to, once we have double-checked, to provide further information. So, Konana, there is one specific question, I think, which we didn't respond. So there was a question about what is the type of selection metrics that is being used to evaluate, or, the projects that were funded. Are you able to respond to that quickly? And that would be it from our side.
Yes, as I indicated, I think it really depends on the stage. So the criteria for pre-seed are really about incorporating a venture building. This around looking at the co-founder strengths. And the around the seed is really around the viability of the prototype or minimum viable point. Whereas at the last stage of the pre-seed, then we're looking at the startup holistically in terms of the business. Is it able to generate revenue? It has market access, and it has a potential really to be either acquired or to list, but we don't see the option of listing being viable. But mainly at the later stage, we're looking at the ability for that to be acquired, where the where the business transaction is a licensing, whether they are able to pay royalties on that. Those are high-level metrics on the other side of scale. So it really depends when the business is coming and the stage. So they differ in terms of the business thing. But what is really important ultimately that the metrics is that it should be able to generate revenue, it should have a market access, and it has a potential to grow and acquire. Thanks.
Yeah, so and then the last one is on rural and township. If like you responded to the geographic spread, if there's a specific initiative or focus.
Yeah, for now there isn't, because we know, for example, from our technology innovation agency and other instruments in the department, for example, if you look at a grassroots innovation, they have a particular focus on that. But from Innovation Fund, we are eyeing that portfolio. So they start, because those intervention like grassroots, they're primarily pre-seed, seed kind of stage. So the view is that whatever startup that graduate from those, they are able then to have access follow-on funding from the Innovation Fund. But as we stand, we don't have a dedicated program that says we are targeting that, because we know from the department and the Technology Innovation Agency, there are already other programs that have a specific intervention towards those. Thanks.
So in short, Honorable Ngosi, I think it's an important point that we have raised. We would consider it back in the department and see what we can do to also make sure that the program to some extent is able to respond to this question about rural and township in a much more direct and specific way. Let me hand over to you, ADG.
Thank you, Dr. Cele. Just to close, honorable members, we are also working on better coordination internally. I think in a recent workshop that we had, it became clear that even internally, in terms of how we work with our implementing partners and stakeholders, I'm going back a bit to encouraging young scientists to follow careers where they can eventually do startups and commercialize. We were clear there that perhaps we needed to revisit also in terms of our own entities and their mandates, and knowing where they are supposed to focus so that we do not create confusion. As much as, for instance, your NRF is responsible for your basic research and so on. But from there, if you are a young scientist that's innovating, you then should know where next do I need to go in terms of de-risking or pre-seed, seed funding and venture capital and so on. If that is not clear, it does create confusion around roles and responsibilities. So that is also work in progress, so that we are able to serve the people better. It's something that we need to do internally so that we're not creating a confusion out there where all these elements are clear on this is where it ends for this one, and this next one would take you to another level, and this one ends there up until you go big, if that's where you are going. So it's work in progress, honorable members, but in a nutshell, this is everything I think that we would present to you currently and the work that we've done around this portfolio. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, DG, and the acting DDG and the team. I think what is most important is that we do not get ourselves into a situation wherein the country goes out there and look for intervention on technologies and innovation that we actually have in this country, XMDG. Some of the work that has been done by the department is remarkable, but even our country is not geared up to actually consume these technologies. I think at some point we must also look at how we are funding research and the development of the innovation, and then we then fold our arms when there must be time for takeoff of that innovation. Now we fund all the way to development, and then there's no direct intervention on taking it off to the market and making sure that it is properly realized. I think that is the gap that the department must work very hard on to close it, so that we have all these technologies, and with all the startups that we are assisting from your side, we have young people or whoever that is being assisted having to take their technologies to the market, because the very same person that you assisted developing and researching a certain technology will be the very same person that does not have funds to take it out there. So we need to find ways to close that gap. That is the gap that is actually taking the department back, because really, if we are to check on many of solutions that the department is to bring through technology and innovation, there's a lot that the country can benefit from the department. But that is just something that I want you guys to go and look at, and the team to look at, because as and when you establish these funds, there must be a clear way forward on how the very same people that we're assisting are going to go to the markets, and they're going to take their innovation out there to the people. Thank you so much for the well-prepared presentations, and for everyone that has managed to be part of our meeting today. The meeting is officially closed, except for the members of the portfolio committee who are going to remain here for the business of the portfolio committee. Thank you so much. Have yourself a good day and a good week ahead.
Thank you,
Thank
Chair.
you.
Thank you, Chair.
Shanas, please indicate when we can have a session.
Okay, Chair, we are ready. I think there's 4 or 5 sets of minutes that's outstanding for consideration. So we can immediately move to that if everybody is okay with that, Chair. And I think Gunther is putting up the minutes of the March the 25th. It was a virtual meeting, and it was on the International Cooperation and Resources, Program 3. You can scroll, Gunther. So that's the minutes of the 25th of March, Chair. So we just need a mover for the adoption of that minutes and a seconder.
Members of the Portfolio, Honorable Matsuni,
Chair, I move for the adoption.
seconder, Honorable Nkosi.
I second the adoption, Chair. Thank you.
The minutes has been duly adopted and seconded. Can we proceed to the next minutes?
Kunta, next one. Okay, that is the minutes of the 1st of April. And that was that joint meeting with digital technologies, communication and digital technologies.
Any
Okay.
mover for the adoption of the minutes of the first? Yes. Honorable Mazoni.
Chair, I'd like to move for the adoption.
Thank you, Honorable Mazoni. Honorable Mjadu.
I second the adoption of the minutes.
Thank you, honorable members. The minutes have been adopted and seconded. Do we still have any other minutes, Shanaz?
Yes, Kunta, next set. It's the minutes of the 13th May, Chair. Go up again, Kunta, so that we can see what was the topic. It's the tier one. That was the first part of this briefing that we had today, Chair. So if we can get a mover and a...
Chair, it's Honorable Mazzoni.
Honorable Mazoni.
I'd like to move for the adoption.
Thank you, Honorable Mazoni. Seconder. Honorable Mjadu.
I second the adoption of the minutes.
Thank you, honorable members. The minutes of the 13th have been duly adopted and seconded. Can we move?
Kunta. Okay, this is last week's meeting, the IK one.
Honorable members, any more? Honorable Mazoni?
Chair, I'd just like to ask that something be added to the minutes, which I don't see, and if I'm incorrect, please can Gunter or Shanaz correct me. But Chair, we did ask that when we have the next briefing on IK, that we have representatives, I think we said the Registrar of Patents, for example, and a few other experts in the field, just to come in and put our minds at ease that the requisite things were happening. And I do think that somewhere we should note that we did ask for experts in the field to be present to answer questions that we might have relating to things like intellectual property.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mazoni. And I think we did raise that it should be included in the minutes. I also raised it with the department when I attended their transformation conference that I actually met with the experts in the IKS, and then the department had assured us that they are going to bring them. So can Shanaz, can we add that to our minutes so that whenever they come, when we bring them back to make a presentation, we also bring those experts to come and clarify their stance with the AKS system.
Yes, Chair noted. We will amend the minute accordingly. I think we did it a bit the other way around. Remember, we had NIPMO first, the intellectual property thingy, and then we had the IK, but we note the point in our minutes that they should, when we have follow-up briefings in this regard, that they come together. Thank you, Chair.
I thank you. Can we then adopt the minutes with the amendment?
Chair, it's Honourable Mazoni. I'd like to move for the adoption.
Thank you, Honorable Mazoni. Honorable Nkosi?
Chair, I would like to second the adoption.
Thank you, Honorable members. The minutes have been duly adopted and seconded. Do we still have anything, Shanaz?
We have two reports, Chair. So, Kunta, there's a second and third quarter report that we've considered, I think earlier in the year, that still needs to be considered now, and then the oversight one.
Okay, you can.
Kunta, give the quarterly one first. Kunta, you're not able to load?
I'm loading. Is this a process?
So this was a presentation on the quarterly reports, members. I think it was in February, I think 4th of February, we considered this. The date, don't look at the date on top. We thought we were going to adopt it in March, but now it's much later, so we'll just change the date on top. But this is the report for those 2 quarters that the department reported on. You can scroll down, Gunther. As a quarterly reports chair for quarter 2 and 3, 2024-25. We need a mover and seconder. Okay, Honorable Matsoni and
All right.
Jadu.
Okay, Honorable Jadu.
I move the adoption of the minutes.
Thank you,
Honorable
Honorable
Chair.
Matsoni.
Honorable Chair. Where
Okay.
is Sapo? Where is Honorable Sapo?
Honorable Sapo is here in the meeting.
What's your
I can
problem
see
when
it
I'm
here, but
here? Hey,
oh,
hey,
okay,
hey,
okay.
hey.
Why
Don't
are you so
start with
quiet?
me.
Why are you so
Don't
quiet?
start with me, Wena.
We're still
Shin,
in
what's
the
your
meeting.
problem?
We're still in the meeting, and the meeting is shared by me. Please, Honorable Matsoni.
Chair, I'd like to second. And Chair, if I may say, I think it's very kind that the members are so worried about where everyone is. It shows a good camaraderie in our committee.
She's so quiet. I don't know what happened with her.
I'm also worried. I wanted to
What's
ask where they
wrong
are.
with you when I'm Jadu?
No, I'm worried
We
about
just
you.
care about you.
Let's proceed. Never mind other members. Let's proceed.
Gunther, the last report. Okay, this one is a bit long. This is the oversight report. Gunther, you can scroll down. Chair, that is the oversight report of earlier this year. Dr. Boshoff.
Thank you. No, I'm not sure if I'm too early with this, but I'm scared that maybe Honorable Mjadu will be concerned about me too. So I want to propose that we accept the report. I quickly read through it while Gunther was scrolling, and I could find nothing wrong. Thank you.
Right? Oh. Are we done, Shanaz, with the report?
Yes, Chair, that concludes the business on the considerations of minutes and report.
Okay, can we get Honorable Mazoni?
Chair, we didn't second the report.
No, I'm noting you for that.
I'm sorry, Chair, we didn't second the report. Honorable Boshoff.
No, I'm noting you for that, Honorable Mazoni. I'm noting you for adopting.
Oh, okay.
I was also presumptuous. I saw the name.
Okay, Honorable Boshoff.
So Honorable Boshoff adopted, and I second his motion to adopt.
Okay, that's fine. Honorable Boshoff has adopted, and the report is duly adopted and seconded. Honorable Mazoni. Thank you, honorable members. Shanaz, do you still have anything?
No, Chair, there's nothing except that next week the meeting is physical in S12A, and it's a joint meeting with Minerals and Petroleum Resources.
Okay, thank you so much, honorable members. Thank you so much for.
My hand is up.
Okay, whose hand is up? Honorable Mjad.
No, Honorable Chair, I just want to find out what is happening about our trip to Japan. Is there any feedback?
Oh, okay. Shanaz, can you clarify, honorable members, on the trip?
Maybe we'll know now after budget what is the 3.0, because the biggest concern is the financial side of those of the trip for all committees, not just ours.
Okay. So the office of the House Chair had communicated with us that everything is on standstill because of the budget. So now there was no plan that was made for any portfolio committees. Ours is also not exception from that. So we are still going to wait for that response. For now, all processes regarding international trips had been halted, and we are going to wait for the response now after the budget. Thank you so much, honorable members, for your participation and your
Recording
presence,
stopped.
Honorable Sapo. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Honorable Sapo.
See you next week, honorable members. Have a lovely week.
Ngiyandisukela nje. Bandingenadade.
Yeah, we must look at this thing of you, honorable Mjad. Sapo.
Yeah, wena.
Nubangani, comrades.
Uyazi.
Alright.